Hello everyone, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through this outline with you. So I'm going to click on, this is the week 1 lecture. So the endocrine system. Now, these are our objectives. The thing about the endocrine system is it's one of the harder body systems to study. You have hormones that travel throughout the body and they bind to other glands that cause them to release their hormones. And there's our survive video. And so here's the PowerPoint, the outline, the quiz. And so to pick back up where I was, sorry, shiny object. Yeah, it's a difficult system when you go to study for it because there are hormones that control other hormone secretions and glands and etc. Okay, so here's our lesson. I would do that first before you take any quizzes on this section. Make sure you do that first. So I already got this pulled up. There's the dashing naked dude. So this is what I'm talking about. The endocrine system glands and organs, they are located everywhere. They're scattered throughout. I had mentioned this in our lab video. We're really going to cover the gonads at the very end. But here's the pancreas. They have pancreatic islets of Langerhans. Here are the adrenal glands, the thymus, which is actually really big when you're a kid. And when you're born, it's the largest when you're a baby. And as you get older, it shrinks. And by the time you get 70s or 80s, it's almost non-existent. It's tiny. Thyroid gland with the parathyroid on the back, and then the pituitary and the pineal glands. So I'm going to use some pictures. And so here's the thing about the endocrine system. When you see that term ductless glands, they do not directly connect to anything. Here's a thyroid gland, there's the bloodstream, and then here's, this is an actual sweat gland, but they just release their hormones directly into the bloodstream. All right, you have to remember that, like I was saying, hormones are biochemicals. You can't see them under a microscope. What they do is they get inside the bloodstream and then they travel around to different body parts and, body areas, organs, glands. And the way it works, it's very specific. If you're a hormone floating through the bloodstream, it's only going to attach to cells that have a very specific hormone receptor. Insulin, for example, is only going to bind to a cell that has an insulin receptor. It's going to bypass all the other cells. And once hormones reach their target organs / target cells, once they bind to those cells, they then alter the cell's function. All right, so just an overview of the endocrine system, and I just mentioned this. So right here where it says hormones are chemical messengers, they are biochemicals. They do travel throughout the body, and like it says here, they're transported by the blood to a specific target organ. And those target organs have target cells, and they have a receptor for the hormone. These are some general functions just overall that the endocrine system does. They do regulate other gland secretions. That's probably the hardest part of this. Control metabolic actions. That's the thyroid. Aid in transport of substances across cell membranes. That's growth hormone and a few others. It should say aid in regulation of water and electrolyte balance. That's a typo. And then stimulation of growth. Once again, that's growth hormone. This number 4 is antidiuretic hormone, aldosterone, and then they also play a huge role in the reproductive process. There is a ton of physiology in reproduction. So I'm going to start here. Now look, I do not have the, I could, but it looks really bad. This is something in class we would have drawn this on the board. I am going to bounce over to this, and I'm going to make it big screen. This says hormone molecule, and these are steroids. So this is how steroids interact with their target cells. I showed you that little animation of the blood vessel when you had cells and blood flowing along. Hormones go through the bloodstream when they reach their target cells, the ones that are called steroids. This is how they interact with their target cell. You see it on the outside. Here's the cell membrane. Remember that? That's 2 layers of phospholipids. Steroid hormones are actually synthesized or made from cholesterol. And part of the cell membrane, remember, are fatty acids, and part of the cell membrane is cholesterol. So they are soluble to the cell membrane, meaning they can just pass right across. They don't have to go through a channel or anything. And when they go across, they come down here, they bind directly to the nucleus. And when that happens, you can see it here. It says hormone receptor complex. And there's some messenger RNA, that's transcription. And what it's doing basically is whatever that hormone's function is, it's now altering the cell's function. So that's how steroid hormones interact with their target cells. They cross the cell membrane and bind directly to the nucleus. Now to go back, the non-steroid hormones. So I'm going to bounce back over to our pictures again, make this big screen. Okay, this is called the CAMP, and you can see it right there, the CAMP system. Cyclic adenosine monophosphate. Here is a non-steroid hormone. Non-steroids are not permeable to the cell membrane. So what they have to do is they bind to a receptor embedded in the cell membrane. You can see it there. It says hormone receptor complex. It's like a lock fitting into a key fitting into a lock. Hormones have a very specific shape, and they're only going to bind to, like I said, a receptor that is in the cell or on the cell that's unique to that hormone. This is showing all of the changes that happen when a non-steroid binds to a receptor in the cell membrane. And you see this substrate level that's transferring some phosphate, some ATP here, using some energy, and then it has cell changes. So non-steroid hormones, how do they interact with their target cells? They bind to a receptor in the cell membrane, and then they actually cause the changes internally like that. It's called a second messenger system. Okay, prostaglandins, and you don't have to write anything down for this. Prostaglandins are not hormones. They are hormone-like compounds. They have functions sometimes that kind of mirror hormone functions. But they are called a paracrine substance. And what that means is, and I don't believe, and I don't have a picture here, but I'm going to go back up. And this is I didn't do this we'll go back, but I didn't do this a while ago. This slide is great. See, it's showing the nervous system. The endocrine system acts like the nervous system is just a lot slower, but it uses the bloodstream instead of neurons. But where I was going with this, you see target cells here, but see this area of cells, a prostaglandin is only going to affect that particular area. They don't get in the bloodstream and travel all over the body. That's a good thing. Okay, if you got tendonitis in your elbow, which is caused, irritation, inflammation can be caused by prostaglandins. You don't want that irritating the whole body. So they are local. They only affect local cells. And like it was saying, they're very potent. They only have to be present in small amounts. They are not stored. They are synthesized right before they're released. And they only affect the surrounding cells. That's it. Here are some functions of prostaglandins. They relax smooth muscles and organ systems, meaning they dilate. They can dilate arteries. They can dilate, tubular organs. They also cause menstrual cramps. Prostaglandins are part of the reproductive process, and they actually help in labor contractions, but sometimes a person's not pregnant, they can get released and cause menstrual cramps. That's why people take Midol trying to inhibit the prostaglandins from being formed, take away the cramping, affect blood pressure and heart rate, definitely, and cause inflammation in joints. This is why if you take Tylenol, Aleve, maybe even icing knees, you're trying to prevent prostaglandins from forming. So a prostaglandin is just a hormone-like substance. They're also biochemicals. They're not hormones, but they actually cause some hormone-like reactions. So just like it says right there, prostaglandins are hormone-like substances. And the last part of this first video, control of hormone secretions. Now, you can have this right in front of you, and then here that'll be the start of the next video. But so all hormone secretions are controlled by something called negative feedback. Okay. Now I'm going to go. I believe that I put this picture in here. Yeah, maybe I didn't. Oh well. So at the beginning of the next video, I'll show you the picture that is a great example for this. But what I was going to say, I thought I had it in your PowerPoint. These are the three mechanisms for controlling hormone secretion. Hormones produced and released into the bloodstream that control other glands or hormones. That's one way. So you have hormones controlling other hormones. Hormone secretion controlled by blood plasma levels of a certain substance like glucose, calcium, sodium. That's another way. And the nervous system actually controls one part of the endocrine system. I do have a diagram for this. So right here, this is showing all the different ones. And there's only one case where the nervous system controls hormones, and that's the adrenal medulla. And so we'll cover that when we get there. Here's one way. See, it says anterior pituitary gland, peripheral, endocrine gland, target cell, action. That's an example of a hormone controlling other glands that produce hormones. Negative feedback means that you have a hormone being released, and eventually you can see this, it goes back up and it cuts off the original secretion. That's negative feedback. It acts like a thermostat in your house. If you have your thermostat set on 70 degrees, if the temperature goes above 70, the thermostat kicks on, the air conditioner comes on, and the air conditioner lowers the temperature in the house down to 70, and then it shuts off. That's how these hormones work. You have a release of a substance, and then eventually the initial stimulus is going to be removed. If you didn't, you would have hormones constantly being pumped into the body, and then you'd have health conditions. So that's one example. The nervous system involves the adrenal medulla. It connects directly to this gland and causes it to release epinephrine and norepinephrine. So I'll go over that with you when we get there. And then this, changing level of substance in plasma. That could be calcium, sodium. There are hormones that are regulated by how much of some particular ions or other hormones are in blood plasma. The example is glucose. If you ingest something that has glucose in it, blood sugar, glucose levels in plasma are going to come up after you eat. And that is a stimulus for your body to release insulin, the pancreas. And what insulin does, it causes any cell that has an insulin receptor to take glucose across their cell membranes and store it as glycogen. And in doing so, it lowers blood glucose levels. So that's the three methods of control. Hormones are controlled these three ways. All right, I'm going to start the next video with going through all the different hormones. So I'll see you there.